Good evening. I'd like to call to order County Council's meeting for February 17th, 2021. If we'll all please rise and pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As in past meetings, we will accept comments both at the beginning and at the end of the meeting. Comments at the beginning of the meeting are reserved for those commenting upon things that agenda items that are appearing on tonight's meeting. And at the end of the meeting, it's a relative free-for-all. So comments can be called in to 610-891-4931, or we can take an email at publiccomment@co.delaware.pa.us. Please leave your name and address so we can read your comment into the record. And I will look to Mr. Martin for any comments that might exist on items on tonight's agenda.
Mr. Chairman, before we do public comments, could you report on whether there were any executive sessions by council?
Thank you. In fact, there was an executive session, and I apologize for failing to bring that up. We had, just before this meeting, we had an executive session on real estate matters. So sorry about that.
There are two public comments on agenda items. The first relates to agenda item 15. It's from Kathy Spar, 2624 Penland Drive, Upper Chi, 19061. I fully support the county investing in a centralized GIS system. I hope that you will work with Julie Del Muto to investigate this further and build on what she has already started in the planning department. The second comment is relating to number 5 on our agenda, the COVID update. It is from Peggy Braden Wilson, 824 Drexel Avenue, Drexel Hill, PA. I sat in on the Zoom town hall about COVID vaccines. Immediately afterward, a friend messaged me that she just got a shot through a social worker friend of hers who called her out of the blue. I'm really angry at the way this thing is progressing. It's not a matter of the short supply. It's the inequities of how that supply is being distributed. Who do you know? Did someone share a link that they were legitimately provided? Were you in the right place at the right time? What happens to people who don't have these networks? I have an appointment. I woke up early and checked Facebook last week. I saw a post that Rite Aid had opened up slots at a new store and went online immediately. I also called close friends and families. All of us got appointments because of my bladder happened to be full at a serendipitous time. This is ridiculous and grossly unfair. As an aggregate, the private providers in Delco have more vaccine than the county, yet they're the most difficult to schedule with. Most don't have phone access. Some prioritize existing customers. Others honor links shared to people not in a priority category. Others reach out to family and friends and put them on the schedule. Why doesn't the county implement a centralized registration list that the private suppliers have to pull from for their schedules? This whole system is an example of privilege at its worst. White, technologically savvy, or connected residents are receiving their vaccines while at-risk communities languish on lists. This has to change. Those are the comments on agenda items.
Thank you. Would anybody on council care to comment on those comments?
Well said, Peggy. I think we all share sentiments, and we will obviously get into that momentarily around our own frustrations with the rollout.
All right, if there's nothing further, then I'll look to Dr. Taylor for our beginning of going through the agenda items.
Agenda item number 4, motion for approval of minutes of the regular meeting of February 3rd, 2021.
Second.
Any questions or comments on those minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Agenda item number 5, we'll have a COVID and vaccination update.
Thank you. I believe we have Ms. Halt and Dr. O'Mahony here to present this. Ms. Halt?
Hi. I just want to make sure everybody can hear me because I only see my screen. So
Yes,
I just wanted to today just give a brief update on the vaccination program in the county. And I do want to make one comment. The county does not, based on from the public comment, the county does not schedule or have anything to do with the private vaccine providers in the county. That is organized by the Pennsylvania Department of Health. We are we can't centralize the system. We are simply another vaccine provider in the county. So wanted to just make sure that point was clarified. So here's our current situation report. We have Pennsylvania Department of Health announced that there was a shortage of the Moderna second dose is in the state. Delaware County has rescheduled its vaccine supply this week by canceling first dose appointments and rescheduling second dose appointments. All Delco residents scheduled by the county will be contacted to reschedule their appointments this week. You do not need to call the call center. We will be reaching out to you directly either by email or phone. As of today, the county anticipates that we'll receive vaccines sufficient for second doses for the already scheduled appointments. The county to date has used all of its allocations prior to receiving new shipments. That means that we have no vaccine sitting anywhere in our facilities. The number of people vaccinated. So this has been a constant issue for many people. If you look at the number of people vaccinated in Delaware County, there's 37,433. 18,000 people have received their second doses. And in comparison, when you look at comparable suburban counties in the southeast area, primarily we'll look at Bucks County, they have similar numbers to Delaware County, 37,745 people vaccinated. 19,222 with fully second doses. Chester County has 34,248 for partially dosed and 13,367 fully covered. So the reason I'm pointing this out is just while the county itself has not been receiving significant doses of vaccine, we are still, as a county as a whole, receiving vaccine primarily through our healthcare systems. And so I want to reassure people, while the vaccine amounts are very, very limited, we are not disproportionately getting, as a county as a whole, we are as proportionally equal to the other counties surrounding us. So our current vaccine, we have 4 current vaccine locations. We have our Delaware County Wellness Center in Yeadon, the Aston Community Center, our Keystone First Wellness Center, which is opening officially next week, and Springfield Hospital, which we are holding off because of the limited vaccine supply. We are capable of doing a significant number of vaccines if we had them, which is, kind of torturous for everybody waiting for it. But together, combined with, if we had all 4 sites operational, we could do over 10,000 vaccines a week doing expanded operations. And even without expanded operations, we can still do a significant number per week, closer to 10,000 without breaking a sweat per se. Our staffing for these, as you can see, we have significant staff and medical reserve volunteers. We have over 2,000 medical reserve corps volunteers and citizen corps volunteers ready to go. They're trained and waiting for vaccine. We have plans for a mass vaccine, our special point of dispensing pod locations in the county. So these were already pre-designated locations in the county. We have over 16 of those just in our school districts. We chose 4 to operationalize and to get ready to be what we call a closed pod if needed. And so as we go through, we could do over several weekends, 25,000 vaccines given over like a 2-weekend period fairly easily. And again, we would hope that we could begin this maybe in the spring into the summer if vaccine allocations opened up. This is just a brief outline. If you've been to our Aston site, this is basically the logistics plan that we're using. I just wanted to include it to show you the thought and the processes that have gone into planning for vaccines in the county. and how effectively and efficiently this has been running for those who have been able to get vaccine. And then our mass vaccine drive-through locations. So we're planning for a mass vaccination site at Delaware County Community College and at our Upland Center. And these would be significant throughputs for vaccine. We could do anywhere from 270 per hour up to 600 per hour, depending on the weather and vaccine allocations. And we are prepared and have plans for both of these sites. We do have plans for our special populations. And if you look at, we are looking for, for many of our special needs patients, making sure that they would have access to a facility, doing community outreach, working with Divine Providence Village and our Delaware County Strike Team to really hit those who would not easily access vaccine at a vaccine large location like our Aspen site. We will be probably breaking into teams and even doing home visits if needed for those homebound patients. Again, this would be operational based on the vaccine supply and the ability to do this in a coordinated, effective manner based on that supply. And just as a reminder, we do have our Delaware County call center. Our call center is handling thousands of calls per day and per week. And we have 12 full-time staff members, 4 call takers that have multilingual abilities, and MRC volunteers to helping with overflow. But even with that, we are significantly overwhelmed. And so we appreciate your patience. We were trying and committed to getting back to all those who are calling the call center. And again, just a reminder, if you are worried about your second dose, we will contact you if your second dose given by the county, not by another provider, but by the county, is changed. So no need to call the call center. We will be reaching out to you if your appointment's changed. Otherwise, your appointment is as regularly scheduled. Okay, so at this time, I'm going to ask Dr. O'Maheny to give us an update on some other COVID matters.
Thanks, Rose. Thanks for that overview. Good evening, everyone. As we're looking at the COVID-19 data that's tracking in Delaware County, we have some room for cautious optimism. The 2 metrics that we're measuring, cumulative incidence rate per 100,000, is down to 118.6 per 100,000 individuals. And the most recent percent of positive PCR COVID-19 tests over the past 7 days is now down to 5.2%. So with continued mitigation efforts, including social distancing, masking, hand washing, along with the promise of increasing supply of vaccine, we should expect the numbers will continue to improve. And there's another piece of positive news, for employers and businesses that comes from recent changes in the CDC guidelines that were updated on February 10th. So if people are completely immunized, they no longer have to quarantine after exposure to someone who is COVID positive. So that would mean that they have to follow some guidelines here, that they have to be fully vaccinated. That is 2 weeks out from receipt of the second dose in a 2-dose series, or 2 weeks out from receipt of a single dose in a single dose series. And this is now only, according to the CDC, only for 3 months following receipt of the last dose until we have more data, which hopefully will continue to extend the period of time. But for now, it's just 3 months. And they certainly have to monitor for symptoms and remain asymptomatic since the exposure. That said, even though people are being vaccinated, they still need to maintain vigilance, and we certainly don't have a time now where we can let down our guard, even though we're busy vaccinating. So this is good news, though. If you've been fully immunized, no longer do businesses have to quarantine their employees. So this will be something that's a moving target as the CDC continues to monitor the effectiveness of the vaccine in terms of transmission and protection. So we're moving in the right direction. The trends are certainly moving in the right direction, and we're all optimistic that vaccine supply will increase in the weeks to come.
And that concludes our update today.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Any questions or comments from council?
I would like to say thank you to the many members of our staff who have just moved mountains to be ready for this. I could not be more proud of the job that this county has done to be in a good place to get this vaccine out. Having said that, I have to say, in my entire public service career, I have never been this frustrated. This county has moved mountains, and we are ready to put this vaccine out. And it's just been one frustration after another. You know, we had put into place a plan to get all the teachers vaccinated and have them at the ready to get into the classrooms. And then the CDC and the state came down and said, no, about face, stop, you can't do that. Now 1A is bigger. So we adjusted. Then we moved mountains and set up an entire mass vaccination system with 4 sites, just ready to go. And again, the state has not gotten the vaccine. And this amidst an environment in which the federal government is announcing 15% increase in supply. It's just inexplicable why we can't get some of that increase in supply. Instead, we had 1,000 doses last week, 1,000 doses this week, no first doses this week. You probably hear in my voice my level of frustration right now. And I want everybody watching this to know that we are doing everything we can to increase the supply to our county. Really, we are trying so hard, and our county has really come through, our employees, our staff, with flying colors on this. It is a supply issue at the state level.
I think that was very well said, and I don't need to sort of echo the frustration and anger that Ms. Schaefer has just shared. I will say I'm beyond feeling optimism. I appreciate everything that Dr. Rowe just said, but the one word I would probably personally change would be I don't feel optimistic at this point. I'm maybe hopeful, but I have no optimism at this point because every week we are told that this may be the week that things turn and that we get more directed directly to the county, and that has not been the case. In fact, it's gone further downward in terms of the numbers. And as was said, being told that we get 0 first doses this week is beyond disappointing. It's outrageous. And so I think I don't know who put together this idea of spreading out the vaccinations across many providers. They clearly didn't think about how this was going to be experienced from anyone in the public. We don't get it. I think Ms. Wilson's comments at the outset were spot on. It does unfortunately come down to who you know, whether you get lucky refreshing your browser at the right time for a particular pharmacy. And that's the opposite of equity. That's the opposite of fairness. Had this been streamlined and had the county, with everything that the good people of county government have done to move mountains and put in place the capabilities to provide mass vaccinations, had we been provided the vaccines necessary to implement that, we'd been a much cleaner and more sensible place for the public. Maybe not that many more vaccinations, but at least it would be perceived, and rightfully so, a more fair and understandable system. So we are all incredibly frustrated and angry at this point, and we are jumping up and down, and it doesn't seem to be doing much good.
I would,
The only comments I'll add to that would just be, some people ask us, well, what are you doing? And, I think I appreciate Ms. Halt's presentation to show what we're doing to sort of make sure that we're ready when the vaccine comes to distribute it. But the other thing that we are doing is daily, hourly, talking to our state reps, our state senators. We had a council met with the Secretary of Health on Saturday morning after jumping up and down and demanding a meeting with her to outline to her all that we are capable of doing in Delaware County if they were just able to get us the vaccine. So we will continue to do that. We've reached out to, and I've texted with Congresswoman Scanlon this afternoon as well. So we will continue to try to work with our elected officials on the state and federal level to try to make sure that we can get as much vaccine to Delaware County as we can. And all of us on council are frustrated, and we appreciate that our citizenry is frustrated as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, there's a couple of different problems, and Ms. Wilson in her comment before the meeting hit on one of them, which is the sign-up system. And as Ms. Holt said, we have no authority to centralize sign-ups in Delaware County. And there are people who are getting their allocations directly from the state. There are people who are getting their allocations from the federal government and not through the state. There are providers who are getting their vaccine, and we don't even know how much vaccine they have on a current basis. So we can't really even tell people where to go. And if we did tell them where to go, they may or may not have gotten those vaccines. So there is no centralized process that the county can assert itself over. We don't have the authority, and the state hasn't given us that authority. I find that somewhat frustrating, because I feel like at a minimum, if we could direct people to places that had vaccine, we could help them, but we can't do that. And I'm tremendously frustrated by the efforts that we were asked to make to vaccinate people. And what's tremendously frustrating to me is to sit on a meeting with a Zoom meeting with representatives of the State Department of Health saying, well, we distributed it shallowly and broadly because we thought that was the best way to get equity. In the meantime, we, in partnership with trusted healthcare providers in an underserved community, are opening a vaccination center in the city of Chester next week. It was supposed to be tomorrow, but the weather's foreclosed that. And we are not going to have vaccine. It is very likely we are not going to have vaccine to open that center. So we'll open the center, we'll have a ribbon cutting, and we're not going to be able to distribute vaccine in a place where equity demands the vaccine be available for distribution. I can't begin to tell you how my heart plummeted when I heard that. And there's literally nothing we can do about it. And I can tell you, I speak for everybody on this call at the county level. It's tremendously frustrating for us. We know there are smart people working on this, and we hope that it will come to a positive conclusion. None of us like looking like we have no control. But the reality is we don't have any control. And all we can do is be ready, is continue to explain how ready we are and be ready when they get the vaccine to us. And that is what we're going to do.
All right. Well, if there's nothing further, then thank you, Dr. Owen. Thank you, Ms. Holt. We will move on to the next item on the agenda.
agenda item number 6, motion for approval of a resolution endorsing the concept of the 911 NMT and its passage through Delaware County.
Second.
A motion and a second, and I believe Ms. Schaefer is going to present this.
Yes, this is a series, a system of connected trails. This is the September 11th National Memorial Trail, and it is a system of trails that are mostly existing or planned, connected for 1,300 miles, connecting the 3 sites of the 9/11 attacks. It's a commemorative trail, and this resolution is one that the board of the 911 trail is asking all of the communities through which this trail runs to assert that they approve of the concept, that they're happy to have this trail through their communities, and with that assent from all of the communities, it makes it a better case for them to get some federal funding and bring this trail forward. In Delaware County, the trail, the 911 trail, goes from south to north along the coastline on the East Coast Greenway, which is a trail in planning and in some places developed, but mostly in planning. This is a really poignant and a wonderful effort to bring national attention to this and make it a national asset, this connected section or series of trails. And I'm thrilled to support it and hope that my colleagues all will as well.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council? Hearing none, all those in favor of agenda item number 6, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Agenda item 7, motion for approval of resolution recognizing February as Black History Month.
Second.
Dr. Taylor, I believe you're presenting this resolution.
Yes. So each February, Americans observe Black History Month, which was founded by Carter G. Woodson, the son of former slaves and the father of Black history, to celebrate the achievements of African Americans and recognize the central role they had in shaping U.S. history. Delaware County is fortunate to have numerous members of the community and organizations who work to educate, celebrate, and promote Black history and culture through education and the arts. This month, we celebrate the men and women across the nation and here in Delaware County who have struggled and sacrificed to guarantee freedom and rights for the children and grandchildren of the future. The contributions of African Americans and their endeavors to learn and thrive throughout history and make unforgettable marks in our nation as artists, scientists, educators, business people, influential thinkers, members of the faith community, athletes, and political and governmental leaders reflect the greatness of our country. This month, County Council is proud to recognize the accomplishments of African Americans throughout our history who have helped move our country toward a more equal and just society. Council is proud to officially recognize February as Black History Month in Delaware County.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. Any questions or comments from council?
Mr. Chairman, to be technical, I would invite a resolution. Now therefore be it resolved that we, the County Council of Delaware County, hereby declare February 2021 to be Black History Month in Delaware County as we explore and celebrate the civil rights progress as we continue our march toward the day when every person knows the unalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Anything from council before we vote? All right, all those in favor of adopting this resolution, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Agenda item number 8, motion for approval to submit grant application to the Pennsylvania Insurance Fraud Prevention Authority for a term of 7/1/2021 through 6/30/2022 in the amount of $558,614, subject to solicit approval.
Second.
Thank you. We have our District Attorney, Jack Stolzheimer, here to present this. Good evening.
Thank you, good evening, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much. I'm asking for council's approval tonight for this grant for $558,000 from the Pennsylvania Insurance Fraud Authority. Mr. Chairman, this is money that it comes from the state, but it is not taxpayers' money. This is an assessment on insurance policies written in Pennsylvania to help law enforcement agencies combat fraud. We're one of 13 law enforcement agencies in Pennsylvania that have gotten these grants. We've gotten it for 20 consecutive years. So the money is used to fund 2 detectives and 1 prosecutorial position, people who spend their time here investigating and prosecuting fraud cases. So it actually is no county money involved. It actually offsets county spending on our prosecutors and detectives. And I would ask for council's approval humbly.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council? All right, hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Mr. Solzheimer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all, council.
Agenda item number 9, motion for approval to repair dry sprinkler components in several buildings at Fair Acres Geriatric Center, buildings 1, 3, 4, 7, and 8, at cost not to exceed $35,823.08, subject to solicitor's approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I believe we have Jamie Pastore here to present this.
Yes. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of council. I'm requesting approval to place out to bid, however the county does it, newspaper, the repair and the replacement of dry sprinkler components in 5 buildings at Fair Acres for a total cost of $35,823.08.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council? All right, hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your time.
Agenda item number 10, motion for approval to purchase 50 new all-in-one vital sign machines from McKeeson off state contract number 4400016912. Each machine costs $2,808.14 for a total cost of $140,407.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I believe we have Mr. D'Amico here with us this evening. Good evening.
Yes, good evening. Fair Acres is seeking the approval for purchase of new vital sign machines to provide care for our residents. Throughout the course of the day, several residents on each of our resident care units require monitoring of vital signs. Due to the current pandemic, all residents require at minimum daily monitoring of vital signs, and many require more frequent monitoring. As a result of the undue stressors placed on our current machines, many have begun to fail or have already failed. To continue providing the necessary care for our residents, the purchase of supplemental equipment would be required to keep our machines going, as manual rechecks of critical values are needed. Many machines have been removed from service completely due to mechanical failure. All warranties on our current machines expired in 2019. Replacement parts for our current machines have been and continue to be unavailable, and currently there is no foreseen restocks. So nursing formed the committee to look and evaluate different vital machines. The CareScape V100 model was selected. These machines will be used for resident temperature, pulse ox, blood pressure, and heart rate. They have a 2-year warranty on the main unit and a 3-year warranty on the thermometer. And we verified the durability of them today through Mainline Health uses them at all their units, and Ingalls House and Abramson Center also uses these units and are happy with the use of them.
Thank you, Mr. D'Amico. I had a question posed yesterday that there's a parenthetical at the end of the agenda item saying that the funding is coming from Medicare or Medicaid. Do we have a separate ability to invoice Medicare or Medicaid for the purchase of these?
No, we do not have a separate ability to invoice them. However, I did look and investigate to see if we can get them through the CARES Act money, and we could. What occurred is exactly what was explained, as you know. Predominantly Medicare and Medicaid is the payer source for 98% of our residents here at Fair Acres. So they basically fund the residents' stay here, which gives us our operating costs where we can go out and purchase and do expenditures for the facility.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions or comments from council?
I just had two quick points. So basically what you're saying is, while you've identified Medicaid as or Medicare as the source of funding, I mean, this is really part of your general revenues.
Correct. We're predominantly paid through Medicare and Medicaid. And yes, you're correct.
Okay. Second question is, one of the things we had discussed was this was necessary because, in part, because of durability issues. And I was just wondering whether anybody had been able to follow up with other users of the GE it sounds like there was definitely a process to evaluate it, and looking at how easy it was to repair was part of what you were taking into account. Did you, in fact, check with any of the current users of this particular product to find out if it's proving to be durable?
Yes, I was alerted of your question yesterday afternoon, so we called the manufacturer to ask who was using them. Like I said, Ingalls House and Abramson Center was using them, and also Mainline Health. I spoke to Mainline Health, and they are happy with the use of these and the durability. They have been using them for the past 7 years right now.
Great, thank you.
Anything else from council? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of agenda item number 10, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Mr. D'Amico.
Thank you very much.
Agenda item number 11, motion for approval to advertise for requests for proposals for completion of long-range plan for library services.
Second.
Thank you. We have Ms. Annie LaPelle here to present this. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of council. Library Services is seeking the approval to advertise a request for proposals for the completion of a new long-range plan. Pennsylvania Library Code and standards for district library centers require each district center to have a 5-year plan for the development and provision of services and resources. Our previous plan, which was developed in-house, expired last year. Given the current state of library services, we feel this is an important time to engage outside expertise to help guide the process, to sharpen our focus on core priorities, and develop an overarching strategy for growth. Specifically called out in the RFP are research activities that will address both stakeholder and community feedback, as well as benchmarking and exploration of how library services are evolving in light of the global pandemic, developments in technology, and anticipated changes at the Commonwealth level, including requirements for district library centers. We anticipate that the work will delve into key areas like leveraging practices that were developed during the pandemic to better serve our entire community, determining the level of demand for digital versus print, identifying opportunities to shift our service models and expand outreach to meet patrons where they are, the role of libraries in helping to bridge the ongoing digital divide, and assessing national trends. Funding for this project was budgeted as a capital improvement for 2021.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council?
No, I like the fact that it's part of the capital plan and not part of the regular expense plan. I'm assuming that's been built into your capital budget, Mr. Lazarus.
Yes.
Anything else from council?
No, this is a really great, and I agree. It's time to bring in some expertise. It's a great idea. And I think it will make for some pretty good reading when this report is done on the future of our library system in Delaware County, at least for the next 5 years.
Yes.
Agreed. Yeah, I'm eager to see what the long range plan is.
Yeah, I'm eager to see what people think is going to be the long range, the impact over the next 5 years of the pandemic. I think it's changed a lot of the way we do things, and it's going to change the way people use libraries. The only thing I'm reasonably sure of is that they will continue to be used.
Agreed.
There's nothing further. All those in favor of agenda item number 11, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 12, motion for approval of agreements, contracts, and amendments with the Human Services Provider of Services as per the attached list, subject to solicitor's approval.
Second.
Thank you. And Ms. Garrison, good evening.
Good evening. The first request I have is to increase our current contract to Prospect Crozier. And this is to allow them to facilitate the Children Holding a Safe Environment, or CHASE program. This is a program, it's a support group for children who have a parent or a family member that lives in their immediate household that is suffering from substance use disorder. And this allows them as a place they can discuss the disease, and they can, among the group, support one another. The second request is to increase the contract we currently have with Child and Family Focus to allow for the purchase of tablets. Given the discussion yesterday, I did confirm with the program administrator that these specific families do have internet access, but I also, understanding the concern and realizing what a vast majority of our services are now being done via telehealth, I've asked my administrator to reach out to all the respective program admins and ask them to keep track of issues they hear about families not being able to get on the internet to access services, because that's a huge issue. And then once we have an idea of the volume, we can look at ways that it can be addressed. My next request is permission to accept the funds for the reinvestment plans. This would cover the transitional age step down program, which is a program for children that are coming out of a residential facility and they can't go right to the community. They need a 24-hour care facility with some independent living components. There's also a homeless outreach program included in this reinvestment plan, a supportive housing program that's linked to the social determinants of health, and the Finally Home program, which is a housing program that's geared towards individuals suffering from opioid use disorder. I'd also asked to enter into a contract with Horizon House for $948,189. This is for the social determinants of health housing program. This would accommodate 22 bridge and 16 master leasing programs. This is for individuals who have mental health, substance use, co-occurring disorders, and so forth, and as a result, have difficulty finding housing and maintaining housing. In the master leasing program, the provider actually holds the lease. The other program, we just work with the landlord to facilitate the funding of the rent. I'd also asked to enter into contract with CareLink for $366,333. This is also for the same program, and it would accommodate 4 bridge and 3 master lease agreements. And finally, I'd asked to enter into agreement with the 4 listed early learning resource center professionals, and this is for the subsidized daycare program.
Thank you, Ms. Garrison. Any questions or comments from council? All right, hearing none, all those in favor of agenda item number 12, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Ms. Garrison.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 13, motion for approval of agreement between the County of Delaware and Trains Towers Incorporated for engineering, installation, and alignment services at 4 radio tower sites as part of the county's 400 megahertz radio improvement project for a cost not to exceed $115,823.20, subject to solicitor's approval.
Second.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Boyce.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of council. Council in the fall of 2020 made a significant investment in our public safety community, our police, fire, and EMS, by purchasing $3.4 million worth of radio equipment. The radio equipment is essentially designed to provide alternate channels to the current system that is often interfered with ducting, support our local municipalities, and then become a part of our new radio system. During that time, a significant part was the advancement of several new channels, and we are ready to install those. We've identified 4 locations within the county to hang the additional equipment. There would be our county locations in Cheney, Lima, and Upper Darby, and then private industrial partners offered up space and media. In seeking this request to hang the equipment on the towers, we did look to other vendors. It's quite technical work when you perform on the towers, microwave alignment, frequency alignment, and removing things. The 3 firms that we contacted, Henkels McCoy, Penco Tech, Penn Technical, and Train Towers of Haddon Heights. Train Towers, the only one that was able to put a competitive bid in for the project and perform in the next 3 months. Train Towers has worked for the county before, and the work, the pricing is within the scope of what we do. So you're asking for your support to move this forward. I know as Ms. Ruther has asked before, I just want to assure everybody we will make this a part of our new radio system as we move in that direction. And this investment really will help us protect our first responders for several years to come.
Thank you, Mr. Boyce. Any questions from council? Well, I know we went over this at in some detail, and I think 13, 14, 15, and 16 are all related to the same thing.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry. Are you ready for that?
No, we'll have to vote on this first. I just I wanted to tease it for everybody watching. It's part of a big master plan. I didn't want them to think this was just a one-off here. If there are no comments, then all those in favor of agenda item number 13, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Agenda item number 14, motion for approval of agreement between EBA Engineering and the County of Delaware to address 911 location errors and improve address point accuracy in compliance with PEMA standards for next generation 911 call delivery services for a performance period of January 1, 2021 to December 31st, 2021 at a cost not to exceed $191,000 under CoStar's contract 4400015674, subject to solicitor's approval.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Boyce.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As council will recall, last month, the council accepted a $473,000 grant from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania for statewide interconnectivity of 911 calls. Next Gen 911 is the future of 911, which really provides better address, location, and services for our residents, as they call us. As we move towards being one of the first counties to take advantage of the Commonwealth taking on this project, we were able to receive a grant that will provide for a substantial amount of moving of our computer-aided dispatch, the CAD information, our mapping location, to a platform that'll be accepted. The next three events all are funded out of that grant, and with the first being a request to go to EBA Engineering for address error locations. This is a contracted service where they'll take where we might call the center line of a street, number 50, they'll correct our data, put it into the format for us to use, the compliant with the new services. EBA was recommended by the Commonwealth of one of the providers that was best served to do this. The pricing is offered under CoStar's contract, and will move us forward to have our data ready for the next transition.
Thank you. Any questions from council?
So, Mr. Boyce, can I just ask, who is the project manager overseeing all of this? Is it you that is like putting all these pieces in place? And
No, it's not me. I have a team here of people. Mr. Brooks, Chad Brooks, one of our operations chief, and Joe Brennan, our information technology partner. We are part of a 6-county region for 911, and we do cooperate greatly with Berks County being the additional one than our traditional partners. So when we submit this grant, it really is trying to move towards true regional projects and statewide projects. It is an extensive process that my team competes, applies for these grants, make sure that the Commonwealth understands our needs, and we're fortunate to award them. During that competition for the grants, you have to be very clear and specific as to what you're trying to accomplish, project milestones. And that's why the Commonwealth takes the step of really having recommended vendors so that we're not going off track. But I do have a team that leads this, and I am just the lead singer in the band for the people that work really hard here.
and when is the anticipated time when this will all be put into place? How long do you think it's going to take?
Yeah, the performance period for this one is this year. We believe that we'll accomplish the data migration on these 3 projects. It's a living tool, so we are going to be looking in 2021 to continue our GIS program, bring more information to this. But these grants are all scheduled to be completed this year. While no promise comes from the Commonwealth, if the data were not migrated over, there is an opportunity to reapply for an extension of the grant to get more funds to get us where we're at. Currently, Delaware County does contract I know I've said it before, but when you call 911, you call your provider. Second, it goes to a national sorting company to say where that 911 call goes. We currently contract for that service around $350,000. The Commonwealth is going to take on that service. So this goal will reduce our operating cost here at the county and also get us more streamlined in. But the grant process is very restrictive when we apply for it. The team goes through it, and it really, I credit also my regional peers as we all try to get to the same best platforms to operate.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Boyce. Anything else from council? Hearing none, all those in favor of agenda item number 14, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Agenda item number 15, motion for approval of agreement between EBA Engineering and the County of Delaware to design interface between 911 call delivery and computer-aided dispatch systems that create routine pathways and geocode locations in compliance with FEMA Next Generation 911 requirements for a period performance of 1 year and a cost not to exceed $119,000 under CoStar's contract 4400015674, subject to solicitor's approval.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Boyce.
Mr. Chairman, this follows suit. The difference in this particular grant request, or excuse me, this request for services, is the operating system we run our CAD is called OnCall, Hexagon OnCall. We are, again, very fortunate to council support. We are going to be leading to the state-of-the-art product that identifies where a person is and provides a lot more functionality and features in tracking 911 calls. To move our existing data onto the new platform so that OnCall works seamlessly with the state call routing system, this data needs to be merged into a proper way. EBA Engineering is able to contract to perform that service for us. So it's very similar to the other. Error addressing is a specific function, but getting our data compliant overall, all of our mapping data, is what this contract would be for.
Thank you. Anything from council? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Agenda item number 16, motion for approval of agreement between Environmental Systems Research Institute Incorporated and the County of Delaware to purchase ArcGIS enterprise licenses, analytical software, maintenance, services, and training to comply with FEMA requirements for Next Generation 911 call delivery for a performance period of 1 year under CoStar's contract 440000225588 at a cost not to exceed $93,248, subject to solicitor's approval.
Second.
Thank you. And one last time, Mr. Boyce.
Mr. Chairman, I'll take this opportunity to really thank my partners in the planning department, Director Hill and specifically Julie Demuto, who works with Joe Brennan. Esri is the geodata world leader where all our data is stored. Through this partnership on the grant, we hope to come through working with many of the county departments to maximize all of our planning data onto this platform. Esri is the tool that we use, and will be consistent with really bringing a lot of resources to county and providing information both for council and for the public to better understand what we do. The specific reason we're asking for these Esri licenses, the public safety grade data we need. Our CAD system has to be operational all the time. These specific licenses are unique to public safety where there's redundant backup systems, secure storage, and cloud-based that our data will not fail during an emergency.
Thank you.
Excuse me, I just apologize, Mr. Chairman. One other thing, while this is a grant to get us over to it, in the years to come, we estimate the cost to maintain these licenses would be to the county about $25,000 a year.
Thank you. Any questions from council? I guess I'll just offer a thank you to your department and for everybody else who's helped to to get this in place. You know, a lot of this feels like it's working on the plumbing, and it's not always so sexy, and it's not really always readily apparent, the benefits that are conferred here. But all of us appreciate the fact that we need to continually invest in our technology to make sure that when we pick up the phone, God forbid we have to call 911, that it works every single time and works as quickly as possible. So thanks for helping to lead the way forward to make sure that everybody in Delaware County is kept safe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
If there's nothing further, all those in favor of agenda item number 16, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Good night, Mr. Weiss.
Good night.
Agenda item number 17, motion for approval of grant to Darby Township in the amount of $23,000 for the demolition and clearance of one vacant residence located at 608 Clifton Avenue, subject to solicitor's approval.
Second.
Good evening, Ms. Hill.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, and good evening, Council. Tonight I'm bringing forward 3 municipal requests for demolition grants, 2 from the City of Chester and 1 from Darby Township. The funding for this program is made available through a $15 fee that's charged by the Recorder of Deeds for each deed and mortgage that's recorded. And then by county ordinance, these funds are set aside exclusively for the demolition of blighted properties in the county. So agenda item number 17 is a request from Darby Township for funding in the amount of $23,000 to demolish the vacant and deteriorated structure, 608 Clifton Avenue, Sharon Hill, PA. Their application indicates this is a single-family detached property. It's been vacant and not maintained for more than 20 years. It has been open to the elements, and the interior of the building is in danger of collapse. It is an unsafe building and a blighting influence on the neighborhood.
Thank you, Ms. Hill. Any questions from council? Hearing none, all those in favor of agenda item number 17, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Agenda item number 18, motion for approval of grant to Chester City in the amount of $150,000 for the demolition and clearance of 5 vacant residential structures located at 626 West 6th Street, 628 West 6th Street, and 629 West 6th Street, 211 Ivy Street, and 2215 West 3rd Street, subject to solicitor's approval.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Hill.
So the second request from Chester City is for $150,000 to demolish 5 vacant and deteriorated housing units in 3 separate locations in the city of Chester. Each of the structures are documented nuisance properties. They present a hazard to the surrounding residents, and they're overall a blighting influence to the neighborhood.
Thank you. Anything from council?
Can I just ask is this fund limited to certain sections of our county, like the CDBG designated, or can they be applied anywhere?
Anywhere in the county.
Okay, thanks.
Ms. Hill, yesterday I asked if what the balance currently is that after these amounts, or what would it be after what's being used here?
So the current uncommitted balance is $763,804. That's of 12/31, Councilman. If council chooses to fund all of these, I believe the balance in the fund would be somewhere around $500,000.
Okay, so I think this balance really has been sort of creeping up over the last few years, and I'm not sure if this is where Ms. Schaefer was going, but you know, I know that we continuously talk to our municipalities about ways in which we can, you know, there are services of benefit to them, but you know, anything we can do to sort of make sure that this is being utilized, because this is money that's just sitting there, and it you know, I'm sure that there are other blighted buildings around the county that can be demolished and you know, reimagined.
Agreed. And we have heard from some municipal governments, it does take a while for them to go through the process to get them to this point. So I can tell you that there are some that are in the pipeline locally, and I will bring them forward as we get them.
Great.
Do they have to have any kind of local hearing to have these?
That they need to go through the local code enforcement process.
Mhm,
And that can be lengthy
mhm.
and costly.
Yeah, I was going to follow up on the question that I asked yesterday about Act 35. I know a couple of these municipalities, the solicitors are aware of it, but is it something that the planning department has any experience with, in terms of understanding what it does and directing people to consider conservatorship if the building is structurally sound?
We've had some success with that. It depends on the location, and it depends on the condition of the unit. The ones that we are seeing most recently are very seriously deteriorated units. But I can tell you that in Morton, they recently used that process that's now allowed by the state. I think we can ramp up efforts in that area.
Yeah, I'd be interested in finding out if, any of the money in the Recorder of Deeds fund for these kinds of properties could be used to educate people about their options. Because I think that's a little bit more flexible than some of the other dollars, correct?
That's correct.
So I'm just wondering if maybe there isn't something we can do to use some of those monies for, an educational program for municipalities both about demolition funds and the process for using those and for alternatives to demolition.
Okay.
So maybe that's a conversation we can take up with Mr. Alcoyne and his and think about that.
Thank you. Anything else on agenda item number 15? I'm sorry, 18. Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
The ayes have it.
Agenda number 19, motion for approval of grant to Chester City in the amount of $70,000 for the demolition and clearance of 2 vacant properties located at 2405 Chestnut Street and 1114 Potter Street, subject to solicitor's approval.
Second.
And Ms. Hill, one last time.
Yeah, so finally, we received an additional request in the amount of $70,000 from Chester City for the demolition of 2 vacant deteriorated properties, one at 1114 Potter Street, the other at 2405 Chestnut Street. Both units are partially collapsed, risking the health and the safety of the persons that are living in the attached occupied units. They are also a blighting influence to the neighborhood as a whole. And we've heard from some of the neighbors, and they are quite relieved that council is considering these demolitions tonight.
Thank you. Any other questions from council? I just offer my appreciation. I'm glad we're putting this money to use, and I think that the county will be better off for having a clean slate to move forward on these properties then.
Thank you.
There's nothing further. All those in favor of agenda item number 19, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Ms. Hill.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 20, a motion for approval of the 2021 liquid fuels tax refund allocations to municipalities in the amount shown on the attached list pending receipt of applications and PennDOT's approval of project eligibility, subject to solicitor's approval.
Second.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Beerling.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, and good evening, members of council. I'm here today to ask for the approval of the 2021 liquid fuel tax refund allocations to municipalities in the amount of $673,439, pending the receipt of applications and PennDOT approval of project eligibility, subject to the solicitor's approval. Municipalities must make sure that the liquid fuels funds they are receiving are used only in allowable expenses as stated in Publication 9, Chapter 2 provides examples of expenditures for the liquid fuels funds. Municipal Liquid Fuels Fund program has a range of projects to support construction, reconstruction, maintenance, repair of public roads or streets. Funds are only available to municipalities who submit an annual report MS 339. It makes its deposits and payments and expenditures in compliance with the Act Section 2.6, appropriate use of funds. Failure to do so may result in not receiving allocations from PennDOT until all discrepancies are resolved. The amount of municipalities' allocation is based on the population, miles of road, their approved liquid fuel inventory. To be placed on the system, a road must have a minimum of 33 feet right away in a township, 16 feet in the borough. The cartway drivable surface, that is, must be a minimum width of 16 foot. The road must be a minimum of 250 feet in length. And if the road is a dead end, it must have a cul-de-sac turnaround at the end with a minimum of 40-foot radius to continue to receive liquid fuels funds. The road must be maintained in such a manner as that it can be driven safely at 15 miles per hour. We will be sending out letters to every municipality in the county once we receive the council approval. For 2020, as I stated yesterday, we did send out letters on 2/7/2020. We followed up with an email on 2/11 of 2020, all the municipalities in the county. We did get a great response. We did send a second letter out on July 8th of 2020. And for 2020, we only had 3 municipalities that did not file for the liquid fuels funds. We did follow up with them on 9/20 and then in an email and a phone call. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Beerling. Any questions or comments from council?
I have a question I probably should have asked you yesterday. And that is, I remember last year at some point when we were talking about the liquid fuel tax funds, we were talking about municipalities who hadn't ever taken advantage of the funds or gotten back to you. Where does that come into play in this? I mean, the awards are being made. Do municipalities who haven't weighed in yet still have time? Or is this sort of, are we at the point where they've missed out for a year?
What we did is we tried to educate some of the people on it. And last year, there was a number that we called or we sent emails to. And we said to them, you don't have to take it for 2020. What you can do is you can ask to have it in 2021. So let's say somebody's only getting a minimal amount in 2020. So maybe they were getting $1,000. And maybe there's something they want to do that if they took 20 and 21 together, that they would get $2,000. We actually had six municipalities that actually did that and wanted to take their money together with combined 20 and 21. So we are working with the municipalities to try and educate them. And a lot of them weren't sure what they could use the money for. And that's all in publication 9. It tells them some of them didn't even know that you could use it for rock salt. So we're trying the best we can to, educate them, and it's money. Please take it.
So but I guess what I'm trying to find out is at this point, for the funds that we're talking about tonight, is there still time for people to come
sure.
Get them?
Well, for 2021, that's what we're getting ready to do. We're getting ready to send the letters out. We'll be doing that as early as this week, and every municipality will get a letter, and then they have up until it's right around September, October when the cutoff is, because you have to have the project done and the paperwork. The 339S has to be given back to PennDOT so that they can cross the T's and dot the I's. And once that's done, they get their money.
Okay, well, it would be great if you could circle back with us and let us know if there are municipalities you're not hearing from, because, sometimes with changes in personnel and what have you, things fall through the cracks. And I just hate to see anybody in Delaware County lose dollars.
Definitely. No problem.
Any other questions or comments for Mr. Beerling? Hearing none, all those in favor of agenda item number 20, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Agenda item number 21, motion for approval of change order to contract E-060620 County Bridge Guide Rail Project at various bridges to decrease the original price of $120,830 by $1,962.50 to $118,867.50, subject to solicitor's approval.
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Beerling.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, members of council, I'm here tonight to ask for the approval of the deduct change order for contract number E060620. This is County Bridge Guide Rail at various bridges. Reduce the original price of $120,830 by $1,962.50 to a new amount of $118,867.50. This is a project I think I described yesterday where we were just trying to get people to do it and the jobs are too small. So we combined 4 bridges into a guide rail improvement and sent them out. And we had somebody come in and do 4 of them. They were in close proximity to each other. And with that, he saved us some money of $1,962.50.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council?
Just curious, as to why a change order of this sort of small magnitude would come in front of us. Is that any change order comes in front of us?
It's been the county's experience that PennDOT's bureaucracy has trouble dealing with changes that are not documented by action of council. And even though less money is sought to be drawn, that absent this change, we'll have trouble closing out the contract because they'll say, you haven't taken all the money yet. And it just becomes a cumbersome matter. So that's the reason to put it on, because it clarifies the bookkeeping within the county.
And if I could also just add to that, if we would want to use that money for another project, Mr. Beerling's people could be in an audit noted that we've overcommitted the funds because there's not been a decrease. So we've run into that issue before too. So it keeps it straight for what we really have available. And these funds are audited on a routine basis by the Auditor General. And we still have one going on for like a year. So I offer that as well.
Thanks.
Thank you. If there's nothing further, all those in favor of agenda item number 21, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Mr. Beerling.
Agenda item number 22, motion for approval for time extension of current NBIS bridge inspection agreement with McCormick Taylor, subject to solicitor's approval.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. I believe Mr. Lazarus is going to present this agenda item. Oh, you're on mute, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a general reimbursement agreement that was executed by the county in March of 2016 with McCormick Taylor. This firm is a certified PennDOT business partner and presently provides bridge compliance services for Berks, Chester, and Montgomery counties. The contract is a third-party agreement that was generated by PennDOT in their engineering and construction management system. PennDOT administers the prime agreement with McCormick Taylor. The agreement expires on March 22nd, 2021. The value of the original agreement was $812,662.23. The balance as of the end of December was $458,353.43. The agreement scope of work includes ensuring the county's compliance with mandated bridge inspections. The projects assigned to McCormick Taylor during the duration of this contract was dependent upon the condition of the county's bridges. A request was submitted to PennDOT to extend the contract in October 2020. PennDOT provided a response on January 5th of 2021 stating the contract could be extended for the duration of the county's choice on a one-time basis. County staff placed the item initially on the February 3rd agenda, and I asked that it be moved so that we could respond to some of County Council's questions and concerns that the extension amounted to a no-bid award of a professional service agreement. and you wanted to know that the county is achieving best value for the use of those funds. The item is now presented this evening. This contract, should council decide to extend it, can be canceled at any time by PennDOT at the request of the city. Should the county ask PennDOT to cancel the agreement, the funds associated with the contract are returned to PennDOT's general fund. An amount necessary to fund a new agreement would be allocated from PennDOT. The current pricing in the agreement is unchanged since 2016. It's also important to note that the pricing per work assignment is set by PennDOT based upon the type of bridge and its condition, so that the consultant can't charge more than a certain amount. Our recommendation is that County Council approve the extension of the contract for 1 year. That'll give us time to get through both this summer with the inspections and then work with PennDOT on an open and transparent process for requesting qualifications and proposals from prospective consulting firms. So I ask for your approval of this agreement.
Mr. Lazarus, I have a question for you on this, which is we touched on in our agenda discussion yesterday, and that is whether 1 year is enough, given that we have to do the bid and, we have to put the project out for RFP. And, we've got to go through that process of doing an RFP because I'm not sure one was ever done. I actually recollect the conversation I had with the one of the principals of McCormick Taylor, who I think told me that they actually brought the bridge inspection process contract outside contract concept to Delaware County after having started it in Chester County and Montgomery County. And so I don't know that it was ever RFP'd. So we're going to wind up having to do the RFP on this and then make a decision and then get that approved by PennDOT, correct?
Correct.
Is that realistic in terms of is it realistic? I suppose if we started the RFP process now, it would be possible to get it done in a year. But if you're talking about trying to get through the summer and then do it in the fall, my question is, are we going to be able to get it done?
No, our intent is to start the process now. The scope of work for this and the pricing of it is relatively fixed. So it really is a qualifications review. We're not starting from scratch with the contract specifications of the bid or the proposal requirements. So I have no reason to feel uncomfortable that we can identify qualified proposers and engineering firms and then bring that to PennDOT in time to be executed for next year's work.
And is it probable that anybody we'd be going to would already be on an approved list of PennDOT contractors?
I think that's highly likely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then that's fine. I just wanted to check because I think that was a point yesterday that I wasn't clear on, that we could get it all done within the year. So thanks.
You're welcome.
Yeah, look, I don't think there's a need to rehash the conversation of yesterday, which was rather robust. But I think a year is as much as I'd like to see, and I'm glad of the fact that this contract can be terminated early if we are in a position to do so earlier than that. And it really is only because of that clause that I'm supportive of the contract extension as it's put out to us today. And that really is because, and this is not directed at our current executive director, but over my experience of 3 years being on council, as we said yesterday, there have been many times when we would have a contract that comes before us and we were told we have no option but to renew it because there isn't enough time to go forward with a competitive process. So given that experience, it would incline me to think that the only way to really ensure that this gets moving now is to keep it on a relatively tight time frame. So this is not a mission to the moon. I can't imagine why, a process of, especially if there's already a list of vendors that ought to be approved, if that already exists, a year seems like plenty of time to do such a process. So that's a very long-winded way of saying I'm supportive of this, but I wouldn't want to see it any longer.
But I just want to make sure I understand something about this contract as it stands. It was entered into in 2016 for a total value of a little over 800,000. Since 2016, we've only spent 330,000 of it. So it's a pretty, at that rate, if we just extended this forever, we'd be in this contract for like another 5 years. Probably more than that.
The rates that are charged again are set by PennDOT based upon the size of the bridge, the condition of the bridge. I can only assume that we did not do a lot of bridge inspections over the last 2 years.
Right.
One of the parameters that we ought to be reporting on, by the way, is bridge condition around the county. It's one of those metrics that's easily measured and posted, and it's a fairly typical indicator of public works output. So it's something that we are going to pursue. Jack's provided me that information before. We just need to make sure that we start posting measures on the county's website.
Well, given that this vendor has a year left guaranteed, I bet you we have a flurry of inspections come up.
I think we would. Just one other thought based on experience. Working for state DOTs, for those who don't do that work a lot, it's hard to make money. So to Ms. Reuter's question in particular, there is a set of engineering firms that tend to do this because they've cracked the code on how to make a reasonable profit off of steady work. So I agree with Ms. Reuter that there are bidders out there who know, or engineering firms who know how to do this.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on agenda item number 22? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes
Thank
have it.
you.
Agenda item number 23, motion for approval to award contract CP 103020 to furnish and maintain copiers for the County of Delaware to the lowest responsible bidder, TGI Office Automation, at the cost of $2,112,000 for a period of 4 years. A vendor is supplying CoStar's approved pricing off contract 001-014, subject to solicit approval.
Second.
Thank you. We have Ms. Burdette here to present this. Good evening.
Good evening, Council. I'm here to ask for your approval to award the lowest responsible bidder, TGI Office Automations, for a period of 4 years at $2,100,000. We advertised this December 31st and January 7th in the Inquirer. We also posted this RFP to the county website. We mailed out on 12/16 this RFP to 16 vendors. On 1/19/2021, we received 6 responses back. TGI was the lowest bidder for this contract.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council? I went back and forth with Ms. Burdette this afternoon asking questions because I hate wasting paper and wasting money with equal fervor. So I appreciate you indulging me in answering those questions. I think with or without this contract, I do commend the work that's been done and would hope that we would continue to work to try to reduce the amount of paper that's used in the county. It saves us money and it saves trees. So let's hope that we can move to a not a paperless environment, but at least less paper environment going forward.
Yeah, I would just add to that anything we can do to increase high-speed scanning capacity and as we transition to the cloud is also a good thing, because the other place where we're likely to be spending a lot of money is storing paper documents. And to the extent the state permits us to scan them and store them digitally in, redundant backed up locations, the more money we're going to save. So I think that is another direction we need to look at, because that also goes to saving trees.
Mr. Chair, if I can add, your back and forth with Ms. Burdett, and which I got to witness, has spurred a discussion about how to positively incent our departments and agencies to reduce the copies that they make, to at some point to turn it into a competition. So while your concern was preventative, we want to make sure that we are incentive as well. So thank you for your interest.
Can I just put a plug in for doing something to get rid of those voluminous paper personnel action forms that all have to be signed by hand by council? I mean, if there's some way to log in with an encrypted credential, I would be very happy.
It is, the improvement of our personnel system is something that I will work on with the controller in great depth to make sure that we can make the process work for us.
Yeah, and I'll put a plug in for DocuSign or one of those other digital platforms that do that quite easily.
Yeah, the only other thing I would add on this front is
you're
that
on mute, Joanne.
Go ahead. Oh, I was just going to say, just today I said there has to be a better way on the PAFs because they take too long to get to us and it causes problems. And as long as everyone signs them and gets them promptly, it's okay. But if people don't, and I don't mean council, this council is much better than prior councils, to be honest. They could sit for a month. So, but it is hard getting the signatures all together, and there has to be an easier way. I do audit letters at my firm, and they come electronically, and we sign off, and they go. So it's there's definitely a way forward on that.
the other thing that I would submit is that in my other world, we are almost entirely paperless, and that just makes us more efficient. You don't wander around looking for a file that might be in somebody else's desk, or if you're working in one office and you need access to something that might be in somebody else's office, you're able to get it online. So there's a bit of investment up front. There's the making sure that things get scanned in, but overall efficiencies are increased and money is saved as well as trees. So lots of reasons to move this forward. And even if you're not a tree hugger, most people do like money, and this is a way for us to save money.
I will tell you that we do scan all the contracts and we have them on a database and you can get them. I will also tell you that the auditors come and pull boxes and look for specific invoices, backup for everything. So we have that, but there are ways with the Pennsylvania Historical Commission, which does the record keeping, of getting permission to do certain things electronically, but it is a process. So it would be great to be able to look into that.
If I can add, all the copiers do have the scanning capabilities.
I will also add, just because it's been hard to get onto our move forward, but there is a records improvement fund that is also funded by the recordation of documents in the recorder of deeds. And there should be a plan for that, and it needs to have a committee. And then you may be able to utilize those funds, which are restricted funds, for that purpose. So it's just another job, but it's a job that would probably be, worthwhile, because you all see a need for this, reduction of paper and reduction of storage space. So in the long run, it'll save money, but there are some funds there.
All right, well, we've beaten the heck out of a bid for copy services. So I will, if there's nothing else from council, we'll go ahead and vote on this. All those in favor of agenda item number 23, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Ms. Burdett.
Thank you.
Item number 24, motion for approval of professional services agreement with Affion Public to conduct national searches for multiple executive level positions. This is subject to solicitor's approval.
Second.
Thank you. We have Mr. Kane to present this. Good evening, sir.
Good morning, Good evening, Mr. Chair, and good evening, Council. It just seems like this morning. I come to council this evening with a proposal from Affion Public out of Hershey, Pennsylvania, to assist in the recruitment of key executive positions for 2021 that will support the county's strategic initiatives. These include, are not limited to, but County Commerce Director, County Public Health Officer, a Diversity, Inclusion, and Equity Officer, a Deputy County Administrator, and a Prison Warden, and with the possibility of help in some other areas, possibly in the Treasurer or in Central Procurement, but mostly for the 5 positions I've outlined. Personnel Human Resources, with the assistance of the Executive Director, solicited proposals from 4 firms with expertise in public sector recruiting. As you know, I approached earlier in the year, later last year, in a proposal with an outside firm that did not have the public sector recruiting experience that you, as I think council desire. We received proposals from Affion Public, HR Gov, Russell's Reynolds, and SGR out of Fort Worth, Texas. We actually got proposals from Affion Public and SGR. Interviews were conducted by myself and my assistant director, Stacy Heisey Terrell, who is our assistant director of talent development. And we looked at both proposals very carefully, focusing on the areas of price, the experience, and particularly the expertise in recruiting the key roles we just outlined. Affion Public provided the best value in the contract that we offered. We've included the copy of the Affion Public proposal, and I look forward this evening for your approval to bring Affion on as a partner with Personnel Human Resources in the County of Delaware to hire the positions needed to move the county forward in a number of strategic initiatives. I ask for your support.
Thank you, Mr. Kane. Any questions or comments from council?
Yeah, I just briefly say that the vast majority of positions that the county needs to fill, I know we have in-house the capabilities to conduct those searches, but I welcome this contract for those most difficult, most senior positions where we really owe it to the taxpayer to make sure that we are casting a wide net and that we conduct a search to really bring truly the best into these positions. So I'm glad we're doing this. I appreciate the process that was used to decide upon Affion, and I'm supportive of the proposal here.
So I'm supportive as well. We have used Affion before in the recent past, and I personally was very pleased with their product. But I wanted to just take an opportunity to recognize, the fact that we're going out to the world market to get to 5 or 6 new upper level management positions, on top of the fact that we have in the last year, 6 months, hired 6 or 7 upper management positions, really illustrates the magnitude of change afoot at the county. And we are in a period of really intense rebuilding and honestly, a complete metamorphosis of how this county operates. And what that means is a lot of change. It's a lot of change for all of our employees. And over the next year, that's going to continue to happen. Lots and lots of change. And I want to just recognize, it's not easy. Many of our employees have been working for 20, 30 years at one job. Now, all of a sudden, it's all changing. It's like their employer is changing without them looking for a new job. And that takes a lot of resiliency and adjustment. And luckily, we have an incredible employee base that is resilient and cares greatly about delivering top-notch public service. So I know that we're all going to be fine, but I do want to just acknowledge that we appreciate that it's not easy. And adjusting to a new workplace environment, which is basically what's happening, takes resiliency, it takes patience, and we really appreciate it, and professionalism. So, this place is going to be a much better place when we finish with it, but it's going to take a lot of work and a lot of patience and resiliency.
I think Ms. Phillips is trying to speak, but she's on mute.
Okay, am I off mute?
Yes.
Okay, and I apologize. I was not able to attend the agenda meeting yesterday, and I have not seen the contract, nor do I need to until it's time to pay something. So I don't get to say in what's in it. But I just wanted to make a few comments. At a personnel board meeting, I did speak out, not in favor of the search contracts, and so I do have a few concerns. I think the idea that we need to go national for every executive job, and that's how this really gets teed up, really does a disservice to the people in the county. Because I think we have national talent in this county or in the Southeast region that if we just went out and looked, we may find people like that. And we've done it already with a lot of people that are here now and that are new. I see when I came here with Mr. Madden and Mr. Zidek, the recruiting, there was no recruiting. There was no real HR process. There was no way to know jobs were out there. There was no website. And this council has made great strides in all that area. We have jobs up. We have Mr. Kane's brought in people that have talent. They have credentials. But I would say right now, the jobs that you've noted that are part of this, only one of them is even on our website. So how do the people in the county get to participate in that search? And so, I don't have any hesitation of using search firms when we hit the wall and we can't find what we need. Or if it's highly, highly specialized, like the warden, I agree that there's not a lot of people that run jails or prisons. So I take it that you're going to move forward, but I think I need to speak to the taxpayers too. The amounts that are considered under this are actually equal to annual salaries for people that are in this building. And to set the heights for executives, to me, it doesn't set a great tone if we haven't tried really hard with our people, because this executive team has all the resources available to it now. It has the budget, it has the people, it can hire the people, it can advertise, it can go into CCAP, it can go into professional organizations, it can do Indeed, LinkedIn, and I think we've done some of that, but I don't know why we wouldn't do that for the executives as well. So with that being said, I've said my piece. I just would like to know how, or at least for you to consider, how do the county people participate in this search if they're not known to a search firm, because they're not on some national level? And I think that's worth all of you considering.
I'd like to respond to that. As council members can recall, last fall we made the commitment to come back with a packaging opportunity for high-level executive recruitments. There are some specific jobs that council identified as wanting to do a more broad search than just a regional search. Those included the Commerce Center Director and the Warden. We've added some others with the ability to employ Affion. Affion is based out of Camp Hill, Pennsylvania, which is about an hour and a half, 2-hour ride. Personal experience with them, knowing that they have knowledge of the southeastern Pennsylvania area. Scott Riley is actually from this area. We may choose to employ them on 2 searches, 3 searches, or 5 searches. All of our positions will be posted locally, and we will very much beat the bushes to find local talent, because sometimes there's no substitute for knowing Delco. But there are other perspectives to be brought in. Hiring the county's first diversity, equity, and inclusion officer is a major opportunity for us. We want to make sure that we find the best person for that job to further the goal, the objective to make us an inclusive workplace to work and to have broad perspectives in how we do things. The prices were negotiated, so they were done in a way to achieve fairness. But to speak directly to Ms. Phillips, there is always a message to be sent by recruiting locally, hiring from within, and that's never lost on me. And we will make sure that everyone who is interested in these positions within the current staff and within our community is given the opportunity, will know where those positions are advertised. And I will talk with Mr. Riley as well as we get started to make sure we put emphasis on beating the local bushes. So appreciate and thank you for your input. But this contract at its heart comes back to something that council had asked for and I committed to do.
Can I add?
Can I just make a couple of quick points because we've brought them up yesterday, and I think some of them go a little bit to what Ms. Phillips is talking about. First of all, my understanding is, as Mr. Lazarus said, we're not obligated to use this. So, you know, and in fact, I know one of the things we talked about was, did we need search assistance to find a director of elections familiar with, you know, large scale mail-in voting? It turns out we have reason to think we won't, but that could change if things don't work out with the candidates we're talking to now. In which case we may have to go national, because let's face it, there aren't a lot of people in Pennsylvania with large scale mail-in voting experience. But similarly, I think there's positions that were originally on the list that I don't think need a national search. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure that a deputy director, you know, deputy executive director needs a national search. In fact, I think it would be, you know, if we find somebody great locally who we could grow, that's optimal. You know, I think there may be some disagreement on council. I'm not sure I'm on board with all of the roles that going out to a national search. I think some of them, and I think there are some that'll have to. For example, as Mr. Madden has pointed out, we need to hire a director of a brand new public health department in the middle of a pandemic, where people who have not just public health experience, but the skills to be a public health director and manage and hire and recruit and, you know, train a department. That's a pretty tall order, and it may be difficult to find somebody local when people, you know, Delaware County hasn't exactly been a hotbed of public health, at least at the government level. So I think this is necessary, because I also think the reality that council may not be focused on, but I get to see it because I am the liaison with the personnel department, is we are putting tremendous demands on the staff that we have down there right now. And doing recruiting is, we've hired, I know Mr. Kane can talk about it, we've hired a recruiter certainly for the lower level jobs, and we all have reason to know that Stacey Heisey Terrell has done a pretty good job of outreach on the roles she's had time to find people for. But we are putting a lot of demands on people, and I think having the ability, and that's what this really comes down to. This contract is about having the ability to send these searches outside at a pre-negotiated price with a vendor that's been pre-approved. And I think there's real value to that. And it's not exclusive.
If I could just add a couple last thoughts.
Mr. Kane, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kevin.
You know, and first of all, intelligent minds can disagree. And this is another example. I always welcome the independent point of view of our controller, Ms. Phillips. I want to just sort of clarify a couple of things, though. Number one, the fact that we're using a search firm doesn't mean national. I think, you know, I want to sort of dispel the fact that just because we're using a search doesn't mean that we're going to be hiring someone from California to come to Delaware County. It just means that, you know, for certain positions, and again, we may not agree on exactly which, but it is a very small group. I mean, it's probably 5 or less that rise to that sort of level of difficulty where we want to make sure we get it right. And, you know, to Ms. Phillips' point of, well, we didn't try this first, just putting it on the website. We don't have a lot of time. I mean, some of these really need to be filled now. We can't, you know, let's give it a shot for the next 3 months and see if we can find someone locally. And if that doesn't work, then we'll hire. You know, I think in my day job, I spend a lot of time with organizations that are undergoing a profound change. And Delaware County is such an organization. And one universal lesson of that is you want to minimize the amount of time in which you're going through such change. You want to really get your team on board and move forward. And so I you know, this is an area where I will stridently argue that you don't want to be penny wise and pound foolish. It's a, you know, fraction of the importance to really get, I mean, our most important resource is our people. Let's make sure we do that right, particularly for these this very small handful of searches where it can be particularly difficult. And at the end of the day, we may hire someone who lives in Delaware County, and God bless, that's great. But I want to make sure that we've done this right and we've streamlined the process.
And not to beat a dead horse, but it's been my experience as well in my night job that there is a cost to having positions not filled. And I am loath when I'm spending my own company's money to spend money on professional search firms just because I'm cheap. But I also have had the experience to know that sometimes you need to get somebody in fast. And if we don't have the resources to do it ourselves, we run the risk of as Kevin's saying, being penny wise and pound foolish. It has been my experience as well. We've got, if you can't get a position filled, if they're not getting filled fast enough, get some help in here, and let's get them done, let them done well and get it done quickly.
I just want to and I'll get off this because I know how you're going to go, but I am in total agreement that you need to fill these positions. We need to fill these positions, but I don't know that should be an effort that should also come from the resources in HR. I know they have a lot to do, but that needs to be a priority for them as well. So I totally agree that these positions are important, and it just comes to mind though that I hope that you might have some sympathy for the departments that come and say, hey, I don't have time for an RFP because I'm so busy doing my job. I just got to keep this work going. And it seems to me it's sort of the same argument here. These things haven't been done. These positions haven't been filled. I don't know that we've even had a chance to look for them, but now we need to do it this way where it costs money. So I say that these positions are important, and I look forward to working with the people once we get them, but I feel compelled to make those comments. So I appreciate the opportunity.
May I just add 2 or 3 comments, and then I know we need to move on the agenda. Number one, recruiting is a contact sport, meaning we are always in the game 24/7. At 4:30 this afternoon, I spoke to someone who may be a future opportunity as a chief public health officer who lives in media and lives in Delaware County. I continue to recruit all the time. There's a major employer in Delaware County that was recruiting for DEI, and we've been in conversations with them at a regular basis. The reason the jobs haven't been posted yet, because we want to make it a coordinated effort. We want to make it a full force effort from the beginning and not piecemeal. So I appreciate all the comments Ms. Phil's made, and you'll see them as we move forward on our website, on Indeed, and on LinkedIn. And I have to tell you, I recruited on LinkedIn for both the Chief Information Officer and the Chief Sustainability Officer. And those candidates came through my recruitment efforts. So I will tell you that it's a team effort. We will make every effort to do it right. And as Mr. Zidek said, we need to fill the jobs, but we need to do it in the right way. So now we're throwing money away in the long run. So as you know, Ms. Phillips, we try to work as closely as we can with your division, and we will continue to do that. I know you've been having success recently with search firms with some of your positions that I think you've been happy with that process. So we want to,
I think I need to clarify my use of the search firms was when there was no HR department, no advertising, nothing at all. And my salaries, these amounts aren't even come close to what I paid. And one last thing is, when I did my budget this year, I asked for $10,000 for this amount, and I was told HR would take care of it. So with that being said, I'll be back to Mr. Kane and see what help I can get. And if I need a recruiter for accountants or professionals, I'll be back to council too.
So last year, HR Stacy Heisel-Terrell hired almost 300 people to work on the election. We have a spring primary. We are going to be hiring potentially staff in-house resulting from the potential deprivatization of the prison. We're going to be staffing up the health department. We are reimagining our commerce center, and we are trying to launch a thought and practice leadership in the area of diversity, equity, and inclusion. We are always conscious of how we spend the public's money. It is one of my primary responsibilities. But these are some key positions that will serve as the future leadership of the county government, and I believe it's an investment well made.
All right, thank you. Well, with that said, then we'll move to a vote unless there's something further from council. Hearing none, all those in favor of agenda item number 24, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Mr. Kane.
Thank you, Mrs. Zeidig. And by the way, on item number 23, full support, we will move forward on paperless all throughout the county, and we will be a primary driver of that, I promise.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 25, motion for approval of a grant to the Economic Development Oversight Board for the calendar year 2021 in the amount of $655,200, subject to solicitor's approval.
Second.
Thank you. We have Laura Goodrich here with us. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of council. This request is for an administrative funding to support economic development in Delaware County. The grant agreement calls for disbursement in 4 quarters to cover personnel and operating costs that the county has historically provided to the Commerce through the Economic Development Oversight Board. The grant funding is derived from gaming funds, which we do understand were down by about 50% in 2020. Mr. Chair, we typically talk about successes in the prior year in terms of attracting new enterprise or growing Delaware County firms with new jobs. Last year, of course, was very different, but in the face of COVID, I believe last year was a different kind of success, thanks largely to the CARES funding support from the Delaware County Council in order to help stabilize north of 1,500 businesses and nonprofits with $16 million. And when additional restrictions were put on our full-service restaurants and fitness centers, with additional support by this council, we were able to distribute over $3 million to 279 of those vulnerable small businesses in all corners of Delaware County. Delaware County Commerce completed this program near 2 months to the date that the December mitigation order went into effect. Moving forward, we have new state-funded program on the horizon for March to assist our ailing hospitality industry. The Delaware County Economic Development Oversight Board wants to engage in a strategic plan to evaluate our current economic delivery system and supports that need to be implemented to encourage a more diverse, sustainable, and supportive ecosystem with special consideration for the enduring economic repercussions of the current pandemic recession. We're also seeking to partner with our regional colleagues on recovery, looking for outside data, help determine which entities are most likely to create jobs sooner and how we can support them. Therefore, I respectfully request that Council continue their support of economic development in Delaware County through this annual grant request.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council?
I would just like to say, as the liaison to this aspect of our government, we are getting a great deal with that minimal investment and the work that comes out of our economic development. At this point, really an office of 1 or 2, but even when we came in, it was just a few people. And processing all of that money, $16 million of Delco Strong money, on top of that, administering literally scores of RCAP grants. And it's an amazing amount of support that of the business community that this office provides. I would like to just say that moving forward, our collective vision for this is grander than what we have seen. And this number may go up, or we may find a different distribution model for how we pay for this. Right now, this is the number that we have invested into this office over the last many years, coming out of our gaming funds. And as I said earlier, it is a steal, really, for what we get for that money and what is produced out of that office. So I am very enthusiastically supporting this grant.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from council?
No, I just would like to say I think that they've really done a tremendous job managing the Delco Strong support, and there's going to be more work in that way to do, I'm sure, because we will continue to feel the effects of this pandemic for a while, especially given the glacial pace at which we are getting vaccine into arms here in Pennsylvania. So I appreciate that, and I think, this is this is a well-spent allocation of funding. But, one thing I also think that we need to discuss is I would like to get a better handle, and I didn't have it, and I know the budget continues to be a work in progress, of all of the various supports that get characterized as grants, who they all go to and what they're used for. Because, I'm really happy to support this grant. I hope I'm as happy to support all of the other grants that we'll be making.
And I'll only add, I think, to Ms. Schaefer's point, it is so great when there is a project as enormous as the Delco Strong process has been, that frankly, from my perspective, it felt like a set it and forget it. And I know, Ms. Schaefer, I know you were far more involved than I was in it, but it really did feel like something where I had immense trust in the team that was overseeing it. And it really was an enormous project to go through all those applications and make sure that the funding was put out equitably. So I really, really appreciate the work that you guys did. It's a great feeling to know that something's being handled well, and it doesn't take tremendous effort on our part to make sure of that. So thank you.
Honestly, we'd do well to give vaccine distribution to our Commerce Center.
Come on.
All right, if there's nothing further, all those in favor of agenda item number 25, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Agenda item number 26, motion for approval of Hospitality Industry Recovery Program through the Economic Development Oversight Board under Pennsylvania Act 1 of 2021 pursuant to the requirements thereof, and an additional provision approved by the County Executive Director and authorization of the County Executive Director to enter into contracts with the EDOB and the Department of the Community and Economic Development as required to implement such program, to execute any required forms or certifications, and to accept program funds and authorize transfers of program funds for grants and permanent fees, subject to solicitor's approval.
Second.
I think we have a motion and a second. We have Ms. Goodrich here to present this item as well.
Mr. Chairman, of all the recovery programs, I think this acronym is the best ever. This is the CHIRP program, COVID-19 Hospitality Industry Recovery Partnership Program. Was created by Pennsylvania Act 1 of 2021. Tonight, we're asking that you move forward per the legislation to contract with your county certified economic development organization called the CEDO, which is in good standing with the Commonwealth and currently resides with the Economic Development Oversight Board, also known as EDOB. If awarded, the intent of EDOB is to open the program on March 15th, 2021. Delaware County's CHIRP allocation is approximately $6.4 million. It is important to note, Mr. Chairman, that Delaware County will not have a lot of say on the rules for this program. The statute is clear on the intended grantees. Eligibility is restricted to businesses that are in accommodations, food and drink service industries. That's your hotels, your motels, full service dine-ins, cafes, sandwich shops, juice bars, as defined by the North American Industry Classification Codes 721 and 722. Businesses that are private entities. No publicly traded firms are eligible. Businesses must have under $15 million in tangible net worth. They must have less than 300 employees in total by legal entity, and must be able to demonstrate a loss of 25% in at least 1 quarter of 2020 or entirety from 2019 to 2020. Priority preference in this program will be given to eligible entities that have not received any other COVID-19 relief funding, experienced a minimum of at least 50% loss of gross receipts in 2020 when compared to 2019, or were ordered to close either in the original mitigation order of March 2020 or in December of 2020. We see that this, as these programs are deploying, and with the state PR out in full force, with all of their press releases in DCD, we are working with our Southeast region counterparts in order to sort of make sure our programs are compatible, including when our delivery dates of the opening of these programs. Especially what we are doing is working with Chester County to try and align not just program, but also right down to what will be required and that release date for two reasons. Number one, we both use the same IT firm for delivery of the application program, so we're going to hopefully reduce our overall cost for this program, but also in order to reduce confusion, because there is a lot of cross-county going on with Chester and Delaware County in terms of Delaware County people who own businesses in Chester County and Chester County people who own businesses in Delaware County. It's like we never seeded over 100 years ago, and that's where we're at. So if respectfully, Mr. Chairman, we are asking for your support to designate the Delaware County CEDO at Delaware County Economic Development Oversight Board as your administrator for this program to move forward.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council?
I mean, as we just said, this is an organization that is very well suited to push this money out and to do it efficiently and quickly. We've seen it happen already with the 16 million that's been pushed out, and using the CEDO as opposed to the network of choices, centralizing it through this one venue is going to be easier for the user, easier for us, and get the money out faster.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right. All those in favor of agenda item number 26, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Ms. Goodrich. Good night.
Thank you very much.
Agenda item number 27, motion for approval to negotiate and award an agreement with Helpware Incorporated to provide temporary staffing and services to expand the vaccine COVID telephone call center in an amount not to exceed $692,347.60 for the period of March 1, 2021 through April 1, 2022, subject to solicitor's approval.
Second.
Thank you. We have Mr. Lazarus, Mr. Bellotta, and perhaps Ms. Devlin here to present this item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Devlin called me earlier and is a bit under the weather, so I'm going to do my best to try and stand in for her. Earlier this evening, Ms. Hall referenced the fact that we are being besieged by calls at our call center. Our neighbors over in Chester County are going through the same issue, so we worked with them to find a outsourced resource that can help us get through the call volume that we're receiving and to be more responsive. Earlier today, Rosemary also talked to me about calls she was getting about calls where people were on call and on hold for up to 2 hours. So this is a necessary aspect of us dealing with the current situation with both people trying to get information about COVID vaccinations and understand better how to schedule their vaccinations. The contract was negotiated in conjunction with Chester County. Frank Bellotta, who is our Chief Information Officer, worked with their CIO. They looked at, I think, 7 sources for both ability and price, and they came up with Helpware. The cost is based upon an assumed 10 operators for 12 months. It is a not to exceed amount, so if the workload is less, we don't have to use it. We also have the ability to shift their use from COVID to the election call center if needed. So it was negotiated using a combination of best value, best price. It is a firm that has good capabilities and a good track record. And it is the same firm, again, that our neighbors are using. So it provides us flexibility. And with that, turn it over to Mr. Bellotta to see if he would like to add anything.
Yeah, I think one of the key items of the contract is can scale up or down based on need. So if we see a reduced volume of calls, we'll be able to reduce the number of agents on staff. And some of the critical functions that we wanted to make sure these vendors had were, number one, the ability to scale up and down. Number two, they were HIPAA compliant. They also provided off-hour support at no additional cost and could utilize our interactive voice response system so that we'd be able to program that to the needs of Delaware County.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council?
When you say they'll provide off-hour support for no additional cost, so they'll do evenings and weekends without an adjustment to price?
So what I meant by that is the support. So if, for instance, their IT equipment fails, they'll support that piece, not no cost agents.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
We still have the staff that we've hired and engaged, and they can be used to work the off hours, so that we don't pay the contractor a premium as well. The other thing that we are doing too is we are shifting some of the resources we've hired who would have been involved in the vaccination to work the phones during the interim period so that we can be responsive. Yesterday, the question was asked also about language capability, and we do have in-house people who are fluent in 4 primary languages.
Yeah, I would also just like to say that I'm probably not as cheap as Mr. Zidek because, you know, I like my latte, but I am somebody who does not like to spend money when I don't have to. And it is troubling to me that we probably, you know, there's enough confusion without the confusion that the state, and to the extent it's been involved in the vaccine shortages, the federal government have added. They have really, they're sending out very mixed messages about the vaccine. We're being told we can't get it because of some inventory issues with, you know, with second doses. And so we're not going to get any vaccine, and we have to cancel meetings, and, you know, we have to cancel appointments, and a lot of this, but yet the president is on television telling people that they're increasing the number of Moderna dosages that are shipping by 15%. How come we're not seeing the benefit of that? People are furious and asking questions, and we're being left to deal with it. And the people who are dealing with it are the people on this call center. So I guess it troubles me that we have to spend money adding extra capacity because the people who should be our partners in this effort are not communicating clearly and don't seem to have their logistics in order. So that's just me venting. Thank you.
Well, and it dovetails to what I wanted to say, which is a bit of a reiteration of what I said yesterday, which is, you know, for many, many people within the county, this may be the only voice that they ever speak to that they believe represents county government. And it's going to be at a time when they are facing, you know, a life or death matter, something that they are very, very, you know, interested in. And I just want to make sure that whoever is sort of scripting and training and preparing for the wide range of questions that these folks may get, I want to make sure we really overdo ensuring that they will give the answer that we would like for them to, and that it be done in a way and in a tone that is representative of how we would like to be represented. So I want to say that again, because I feel like this is a really, really important service that we are asking of someone, and I want to make sure it's done right.
Appreciate that, and thank you for it. One other thing I'd like to add is when I listened in on the County Commissioners Association of Pennsylvania call with the acting health secretary this afternoon, one of the things that they are using to evaluate allocations of vaccine in the future is the ability of people to make their appointments by telephone to overcome some of the digital separation issues we have in society and the inequities that come from that. So this will help us in that regard as well.
Thank you. Anything further from council on agenda item number 27? We're hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Mr. Bellato.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 28, motion for approval of professional services agreement between the County of Delaware and Dr. David Fowler to conduct an assessment of the Delaware County Medical Examiner's Office for costs not to exceed $40,000, subject to solicitor's approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I believe Mr. Lazarus is going to present this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The agreement before council is to conduct a review of the needs of our medical examiner in the medical examiner's office. One of the most unfortunate aspects of the pandemic is that it has highlighted the problems we have with the ME's office due to really years of neglect and underinvestment. And as a result, with the workload more than doubling, the resources have been static. Even though the county and council has worked to increase the wages of the medical examiner assistants, and we've worked with Mr. Kane to fill the vacancies, the ME is still struggling. When I spoke to Dr. Hellman, we talked about having a comprehensive look at procedures, staffing, operations, and capital needs, including the associated budget. Dr. Hellman is very much involved in working in the system and cannot work on the system to make that designation. So I asked him if he knew anyone or any sources to go. I did get one other recommendation from some of the funeral directors, but when he gave me Dr. Fowler's number, I called him and obtained his resume. And he is very distinguished in the field. He is the former medical examiner for the state of Maryland and is currently working as a consultant to do things like we're going to ask him to do. The contract involves a large amount of stakeholder input and interviews to get the viewpoints of others who have been using the medical examiner services as well. And it's about a 3 to 4 week effort, which will help us make improvements while we still need to be responsive to the pandemic, but also give us a forward-looking approach to making sure that we have a medical examiner's office that practices leading techniques, is well-staffed, is a professional place to work, and is reflective of the values of Delaware County.
Thank you, Mr. Lazarus. Any questions or comments from council? I guess I'll just offer, I did speak with Dr. Hellman about this last night. He wanted to appear, but he's doing other medical examining things tonight. But one of the things that we've seen is that our resources were just overwhelmed by this pandemic, and we haven't made the investment that I think needs to be made in our medical examiner's office. It needs to be able to be responsive for people in their hour of need. When people are trying to bury loved ones and they can't get a death certificate because we don't have enough resources to do it, it just adds insult to injury. And we also need to make sure that we are able to just do the work that needs to be done so that so many other next steps can be taken, whether that's our DA's office or whether that's just, laying people to rest. So I'm in favor of doing this and think it will put us on a good path to making sure that we are making the medical examiner's office that which it needs to be for Delaware County. With that, all those in favor of agenda item number 28, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Agenda item number 29, motion for approval to advertise a request for proposals to conduct an assessment of the procurement organizational structure, operational functions, levels of staffing, policies and procedures, processes, and technology utilization for the County of Delaware, subject to solicitor's approval.
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Lazarus.
And thank you, Mr. Chair. There's no secret to the challenges we face with our procurement operations really over the last year. That's everything from competitively bidding, which we talked about earlier this evening, to the records keeping and auditing functions that Ms. Phillips has referenced repeatedly about us needing to make sure that we can support prompt, accurate, and appropriate payment of bills. There are other things that we also want to look at, including environmentally responsible procurement practices, minority business approaches, accounting for the cost of carbon and determining who the low bidders are. And we want to make sure that we always have best value approach to professional services. I brought these up in a conversation I had with Mr. Robert Cagle, who is the county administrator in Chester County while we were actually talking about the previous contract for the phone bank services. And they recently went through the same kind of upgrade and modernization of their procurement agency that we'd like to look at. And he shared with me the request for proposal that they used. Again, this is the same comment I just made about having the ability to work on the system, not in the system. And we are trying to restaff so that we can work within the system to provide for the needs of the county government. But we do need to look at how we can modernize and become more efficient in our procurement efforts. So what I'm asking for is the ability to put together and put out an RFP to get different people to propose on how to look at our procurement system.
Thank you. Any questions or comments?
I think this is, it's not often that a business entity or a government is faced with the opportunity, both the challenge and the opportunity of being able to rebuild something from the ground up without having to worry what's there. We don't have anything there. We've got people who have stepped in as interims to fill vacancies, and it is a team effort, and a lot of good work is going on. We are making a lot of use of the CoStar contracts, I believe, because that satisfies the county code, and to the extent possible, it minimizes the need to rely on knowledge of vendors who serve particular areas, because we don't have that in-house right now. But I think this is an excellent opportunity. It's a chance to build something from the ground up. And how often do you get to do that in a county government that's been around for a couple hundred years? So I'm looking forward to what they have to say.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I just had a question. The procurement is driven by the administrative code, and I understand that there is a look at that, and although I have not seen it or what the revisions are. So is this to be done in conjunction with that? Is this going to be advising that? Have you surveyed departments for needs other than service? And I mean, tonight we're going to be paying almost $10 million of bills. So people are purchasing and going through a process, and it is tied very tightly to our accounting system. So I'm just wondering how that plays in I wouldn't want you to do it and then make changes to the code, or will this inform changes to the code? So,
if I could address that, we've started some internal discussions regarding potential omnibus changes to the administrative code. We've started with solicitation of perspectives from members of council, from certain members of senior management, and that process will continue. And that process will continue coincidentally with the item which is anticipated by agenda item 29. So the thought would be that sometime later in the year, there would be an integrated proposal which would incorporate the best judgment of Mr. Lazarus, those who report directly to him, the solicitor's office. Certainly, as I met with you, Ms. Phillips, about this last week, we're going to be incorporating your perspectives, and those of your staff in the controller's office. So the idea is to bring together everyone's perspective over the next several months, and then ask council to consider it and consider it for essentially a unified approach. There are certain costs associated with piecemeal changes to the administrative code. So the idea is to bring it all together in one big potential set of amendments to the code, and that process will be ongoing over the first half of the year.
okay, thank you. You told me I was coming early, so I will wait to see whatever it is you would like us to look at. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on agenda item number 29? Hearing none, all those in favor of agenda item number 29, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Agenda item number 30, motion for approval to advertise requests for proposals for a qualified communications firm to provide strategic communications, advocacy, and public relations support for the Delaware County Health Department, subject to solicitor's approval.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Lazarus.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. This request to put out an RFP for a qualified communications firm comes to us from the steering committee for the formation of the health department. They have a subcommittee on strategic communications, advocacy, and outreach. The chair of that is Francis Sheehan from the Foundation for Delaware County. The foundation is going to fund this opportunity, but they have asked that in partnership the county put the RFP out and actively manage the contract. So yesterday, Mr. Chair, you asked a couple of questions and I'd like to respond to those. One is that when the proposal comes back, it will have to be accompanied by a funding agreement that addresses the items that you had mentioned. Also, since we will be putting together the contract documents, we will certainly make sure that the county's interests are protected as we always do. The proposal consists of two parts. The first part is currently funded. They have the money for that. It's about $50,000. And then that builds the communications plan and the strategies. And the second part is more of an execution phase. The foundation is currently fundraising for that. We will not put the RFP out until we have the certification or a funds or equivalent from the foundation. But so ours is not just ministerial, but it's also as an active participant since we are actively engaged in the steering committee.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council?
Mr. Chairman, if I could jump in, I thought I had recalled you expressing an intent to recuse on this item.
I do. Thank you. Yes. I was going to do that at the vote, but I can do it now. Yes. So I will announce my recusal. My wife serves on the board of the Foundation for Delaware County. Unpaid. It's an unpaid position. It's volunteer, but in the interest of safety, I will recuse myself from consideration here.
And I think consistent with that, Dr. Taylor, as vice chair, could conduct the further discussion of this item on the agenda.
Yes. Are there any other questions or comments from council? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. All those opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Moving on to agenda item number, what number are we on? Sorry.
31.
31. Moving on to agenda item number 31. Motion for approval to advertise requests for proposals to obtain task order contracts for architectural and engineering services. This is also subject to solicitor's approval.
I'll second.
Mr. Lazarus, one last time.
I think I have one more opportunity to speak later in the evening, but thank you for reminding me. This is a request to put some requests out to obtain open-ended, zero-based minimum delivery order contracts for architectural engineering services. What that means is we'll have 2 or more contracts for architects, 2 or more for engineers, so that they will be competitively sourced using a best value price based on qualifications and pricing schedules. Then when we have an item come up for it that needs design, we will be able to expedite that process and move faster than the glacial advance that we've been accused of on occasion, and be able to move design work quickly and consistently with council's desire to make sure that everything is completed. The conversation started when I was speaking with both Mr. Bellotta and Ms. Locke as we were making improvements in the processing of our capital improvement program. We talked about the fact that we have been behind on spending the money as we had originally put in the CIP. And this is a part of the program to make sure that we can be responsive in delivering capital programs, particularly the smaller design efforts that we need when we look at facilities, small facilities improvements. So as for your consideration of this, the contracts will come back to council when it's time to make award. So you'll have another bite at the apple as well. But it's a best practice. Many governmental entities have used it as a way to expedite design services.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Mr. Lazarus on agenda item number 31?
Well,
Good.
I just want to say this, when I saw this item, I must say, as I said yesterday, I was very excited because I've seen again and again on the small little projects in our county, we just go to an A&E professional because that's who we've always used, not after any kind of thoughtful process for projects that aren't big enough to really bid out. And having a pool of qualified A&E professionals available that we vetted out ahead of time, I think not only will it make things go more quickly, but it's also, we'll get a better product because we're just not going by default to the guy who always did it, which happened to have been the practice. So I'm thrilled that you're moving ahead with this.
Yeah, I also think there's something to be said for having sort of agreed upon pricing or at least an agreed upon stable of people with a list of a schedule of fees, hourly rates, and other things that are approved that you can go to, because it can speed projects. And sometimes things, I'm sorry, that is not Larry, that's Max this time. But it's one of these things where being able to jump on a project because a firm has qualified people, you've got a pre-negotiated rate, and if it's going to be in an amount that's less than coming to council, even, you can just get a start on it. So I think this is a great idea. I think it's forward looking. It is trying to be prepared, and it is also doing something to bring in new vendors into the mix so that when we find ourselves with those emergencies or those small projects, we get to try out people who aren't just the people who were still on the Rolodex from the last person who needed to call somebody. So I'm thrilled.
All right, we have a lot of people excited about this agenda item. Anybody else wish to comment?
I'm excited too.
Okay. Let the record show. All right, all those in favor of agenda item number 31, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Agenda item number 32, motion for approval of Central Tax Collection Department's request for refunds for the year 2020 county real estate taxes for one property owner due to the overpayment of the amount of taxes due.
Second.
Mr. Martin.
We seek approval of one refund in the amount of $1,429.
All right, all those in favor of agenda item number 32, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it.
One very loud objection.
Agenda item number 33, motion for approval of appointments to the Green Space Task Force as per the attached list.
Second.
Motion is second. Ms. Schaefer?
Well, I'm very, very happy to present tonight the newly appointed Green Space Task Force appointees. Just by background, this is our new open space and trails program, and this task force is going to be tasked with with identifying and defining our open space and trails program as we move forward. And this council would like to make that a priority and to increase our investment and our focus on those efforts. And this is going to be the group that helps us do it. There are 13 people on this committee. There were over 50 applicants. Of those applicants, 27 were interviewed by a committee. The committee was employees of our planning department and our consultant, Ann Toole, and her staff. She's the consultant that we have hired for 1 year to help us put our program together and to help us design how this is going to function going forward. This list of 13 people is diverse. It's diverse in terms of geography in our county. It's diverse in terms of talent base, of cultures. There are some old favorites that are the brain trust of open space and trails in our county on this, but there are also some new faces that are going to bring creativity and a new, fresh look. I will say, if there's a theme among the people that we have put on this committee, that we are putting on this committee tonight, it is really focusing on getting open space investment all over our county to all communities. And, regardless of how much open space there is, and making sure that our investment in these trails and open space, it touches every resident in every single town. So with no further ado, I'm going to go ahead and read the names. We have, as I said, 13 on the main committee. Jose Alvarez from Chester, Andrew Bunting from Swarthmore, Mario Semino from Morton, John Crossan from Concord, Allison Dobbins from Upper Darby, Ann Hutchinson from Haverford, Douglas Interante from Upper Providence, Jamie Gilasian from Haverford, Robert Jordan from Marple, William Leiter from Collingdale, Afsana Oreen from Upper Darby, Peter Reichard from Yeadon, and Peter Williamson from Media. We're also appointing tonight, or voting on tonight, a young youth representative, a 16-year-old from Bethel named Dominic DeLuzio, who was really excited about joining this committee, and we're thrilled to have him on it. And then we have staff support who will be a part of this effort. Myself from County Council, Karen Willwall from the Conservation District, Mark Manfrey from Parks and Recreation, and Steve Beckley and Ann Stauffer from our Planning Department. So that is the dream team of green space and trails. And I would like to, I think we've already, I don't know if we made a motion, but I will make it again. I would like to move that we approve this committee.
Thank you. I think we have moved and seconded and moved again. Any questions or comments on the dream team?
Only that I thank the committee that went through the rigorous process they did to select this esteemed group from a very large number of people who applied. Ms. Shaver, what was it? I thought it was 50, or it was a lot.
50. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So tremendous. Well done.
I just want to also offer that almost everybody in these interviews said to the team, look, if I don't get appointed, I get it. So many people are, but please, I want to be involved. Let me be involved in some way, shape, or form. So we have a very enthusiastic resident base on this front.
Yeah, and I maybe just to further on what I said earlier, I think we spoke of opening up government and making it something that is participatory from the entire community, and I'm very pleased with how this process went. And it's not the first. I know for a lot of these appointments we've gone through a similar process, but compare and contrast to what Brian and I experienced the first 2 years of our being on council, and I'm glad to see the changes that we made.
If there's nothing further, all those in favor of the appointments as per the attached list, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it.
All right, so I would actually like to make a motion to amend the agenda at this point to appoint Ms. Christine Ruther to the board of the Solid Waste Authority.
Now we have a motion to amend the agenda. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any questions or comments on the motion to amend the agenda?
I would just like to explain what the situation is, since we were just talking about opening up the county and appointing people. We learned today that Mario Severa, who is the chair of the Solid Waste Authority, had submitted his resignation after service on that board for some time. And the Solid Waste Authority is part of the county's economic unit. It has a number of big decisions coming up, including, whether or not and for how long to extend the Covanta incinerator contract. There is a pending discussion of potentially expanding the landfill, which has a limited capacity. The authority has been running at a loss the last several years. There is also there are HR considerations, including the fact that they utilize county employees. Although I believe they also reimburse us for those employees, but they are employed by the county. And just an awful lot of things that have been going on. I've been serving as the liaison to the Solid Waste Authority. I've met a couple of times with the board and the administration and stay in very close touch with some of the board members that we've appointed. I think given the number of decisions that are coming up in the very short term, like literally in the next 3 to 6 months, to both go through a posting process for the balance of Mr. Severa's term, which would otherwise have ended in October of 2022. To go through that now, we delay having another person on the board who is knowledgeable about the issues that are facing the Solid Waste Authority right now. My hope is that this appointment will be somewhat similar to Mr. Zidek's on Delcora, since he'd been attending those meetings for a while, that, I can basically bridge this to a point where we would be putting it up at the latest when Mr. Severa's term expires, and hopefully before then.
Thank you. Any other comments on the motion to amend the agenda? I guess I'll just say, I don't like amending the agenda on the day of the agenda, but I'm supportive of doing so here because of the fact that we just found out today that there was this vacancy, and in the absence of us doing this, the board would not be filled for that seat would not be filled before the next meeting of the Solid Waste Authority. And as Ms. Ruth has suggested, there are a number of pressing issues that need to be resolved, and I think having the full board to weigh in is useful. So I think it's useful to, in turn, amend the agenda tonight. All right, so if we'll then take this vote to then formally amend the agenda. All those in favor of amending the agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, so we are formally amended. So we have the new motion in front of us now. Any further comments on the motion in front of us?
Mr. Chairman, can I ask you to make that, to fill the unexpired term of Mario Severa to October 2022?
Yes, please. Dr. Taylor, would you perhaps change the motion?
Yes, make a motion for approval to appoint Ms. Christine Ruther to the Solid Waste Authority Board for a term until October of 2022 to fill the vacant spot of Mr. Mario Severa.
Thank you. Can you get a second?
No, I'll second.
Okay. Mr. Madden?
Yeah, I was just in the interest of consistency with what we just described with the open space committee and many of our other positions. I do want to see that we run a process here in short order to make sure that we fill this position in a way that's consistent. So, I welcome the appointment now in the interests of getting this spot filled for the next meeting, but I'd like to make sure we do this consistently.
Yeah, I think just to address that, I think my request would be, I believe the Covanta contract has to come up before at some point this summer. So my thought would be that would be the latest that I would expect to serve through, just because there's that and addressing the landfill issue. which I understand in the past when the cost associated with doing that may be upwards of 25 million. And in the past, the county has had to pony up to do various things in connection with the landfill. So I think until we sort of know what those paths are going to be, but I'm expecting it to be sometime this summer. And I would just ask that we postpone posting this position until the summer, but that we do it with the summer with the idea of potentially filling it in September.
In the way of clarification, the Covanta renewal issue is triggered by a submission by Covanta, which can be made as early as May 1st.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on this motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Ms. Ruther.
Agenda item number 35 now, I guess. Motion for
34.
34. Motion for approval of the request by the Controller's Office for payment of current bills.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Anything of note, Ms. Phillips?
No, we're just getting to the end of paying for bills for 2020. Those invoices are still coming in from departments, but the end of the month is coming upon us, and that's when people are supposed to have things paid and done using last year's money. So we're on schedule to do that with some adjustments that need to be made, and we'll be closing out funds for closing the books.
Thank you. With no other comments, all those in favor of agenda item number 34, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Now we get to hear from Mr. Lazarus again. Communications from our Executive Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Earlier today, I sent a memo to Council with some data on it regarding the purchases that were made under the authorities Council provided for vaccine-related supplies, PPE, and PPE. I also included the response we've gotten to the Experian contract we have to provide identity theft protection and credit monitoring as a result of the intrusion into our security system, and also a summary of where the child care network funding Council provided is in terms of how many families and children have been serviced. So I offered that as data that hopefully you can use in evaluating where we are in future decision making. Also, I would just remind people, particularly county staff, to be wary of the fact that there may be a weather-related posting sometime this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Lazarus. Next item then, is there any questions or comments from the Council for Mr. Lazarus? All right, we'll move on to the next item, which calls for the Solicitor's Report. Mr. Martin.
2 items, Mr. Chair. First, I would ask approval of Council to file 2 petitions for the termination of parental rights with the Orphans Court.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you. And the second item is in the way of a status report. We had spoken to Council 2 weeks ago about the rental relief program, which was incorporated in the December COVID relief plan approved by Congress. There's a interdepartmental team working on that, including Ms. Garrison, Ms. Hill, Mr. Bellata, Mr. Lichtenstein, myself, representatives of the CFO office. We are going through a competitive process identifying potential providers of professional assistance in implementing that program. To remind you, there's $17 million available in the federal aspect of the program, and an additional $20 million available through the state aspect. These 2 programs have very similar criteria, but not identical criteria, which will be one complicating factor as we set up an administrative structure. This is to alert council that at its meeting in early March, it's anticipated that this interdepartmental group headed up by Ms. Garrison will be bringing to council a proposed plan for distribution of these funds in the county. If approved, it would be expected that information would be spun out to the public during the last half of March, and that distributions would begin to be made in April. We are in coordination with the president judge and others in the court system to coordinate this program with pending eviction proceedings, that being specifically eviction matters that had been filed prior to the end of January, in order to provide certain priority to those landlords and tenants for participation in the program. And, you know, we know this has been a matter of public interest and council interest. So I wanted to give you that as an update.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council for Mr. Martin?
I would just like to say that I really appreciate the work that's gone into it. And I know that if the new federal relief bill that is out there goes through, that there will be possibly an opportunity to do something for homeowners in addition to just renters.
Thank you, Ms. Ruther. I guess we'll go on to public comments now. Do we have any public comments, Ms. Ruther?
We do, not nearly as many as yesterday. Two of them were received yesterday. From Andrew Pigeon, 1728 Hawthorne Avenue, Havertown, PA. Did you say that the Chester County Health Department was waiting for the Centers for Disease Control to update the 6-foot guidelines to change theirs? The CDC did not lower the distancing requirement to 3 feet. Does that mean that the Chester County Health Department will not update their guidelines? That would give the superintendents the ability to not open school. Please help us. What else can we do? Schools are open everywhere. I would just point out that that's right. The CDC did not change their guidance. Chester County Health Department, they did refine it, I think. The Chester County Health Department has mirrored those changes, but it doesn't mean that the superintendents always have the ability to open school or not open school. These are guidelines, and I know that the Chester County Health Department is open to meeting, I'm sure, with the individual school districts to talk about mitigation plans. So it's really not a question of what the guidance is. It's a question of what the district chooses to do with it, which we discussed yesterday at great length. From Peggy Braden Wilson, 824 Drexel Avenue, Drexel Hill, PA. On behalf of my fellow Delaware County taxpayers and myself, thank you for filing the petition to force the 3 county residents to reimburse the county for expenses incurred in defending itself against their baseless accusations of vote counting irregularities. Despite reasonable explanations of the legitimacy of what they interpreted to be violations of the court order, they persisted in their baseless allegations before the court. This cost the taxpayers of this county money. They also, and persist in doing so to this day, attempted to destroy the confidence of county voters in the free and fair elections that took place on November 3rd. This was solely out of blind loyalty to the candidates who lost. One of them is one of the interveners. It is only fitting that they reimburse the county for their efforts to contravene the will of the electors of Delaware County. What Ms. Wilson is referring to is the fact that, and I believe the attorney representing the county, an outside attorney, filed a motion for attorney's fees against people who attempted 48 days after the election to intervene in a case that had been filed by the Delaware County Republican Party. I noted when I read that the Delaware County Republican Party was not the subject of the case for fees, and nor did they have anything to do with this late motion to intervene. I think that's accurate, isn't it, Mr. Martin?
It is. In the way of clarification, while the filing was made by outside counsel, it was not made at its determination. The filing was made by outside counsel at the direction of the solicitor.
Well, thank you for that. And at some point, I know I would be very interested in sitting down with whoever it is who has the information to really get a full accounting of what all of these lawsuits cost us. Because I think I have gotten that question several times from people, and I said I don't have an answer yet. So I think that would be something I'd like to be able to, perhaps you could bring that up in one of your comments at a future meeting. This is the last public comment that we have that can be read. And I just remind people, you need to actually give your street address, not just your town and not just your street or your neighborhood when you submit a comment. This is from Rosanna Agata, 71 Old Mill Drive, Media, PA. Why, when someone registers for the vaccine on the Delaware County site, they do not get a number as to where they are in the queue? It would be helpful to know that your registration has been confirmed. I don't have any information on that point, but that is the final public comment.
All right, thank you. Anything from council on that point? Hearing none, we will move on to council comments then. So Ms. Ruther, you want to take us away?
I actually do not have anything for comment tonight, except to say that I have been participating in some Zoom events around the county, and there are a number of them and some really interesting projects that always come up during Black History Month. And I would encourage people, especially if the weather's not great tomorrow and you're stuck at home, take a look at, do some searching about Black History Month and events going on in Delaware County. There's some projects specifically involving the history of Chester, and that I've found to be very, very interesting. So you can learn a lot, and it's unfortunate that somehow we need to treat this as, I look forward to the day when this history is not just is celebrated perhaps in February, but can be experienced and shared year round.
Thank you, Ms. Ruther. Ms. Schaefer.
No, I don't have anything. I've already had my temper tantrum about the vaccine tonight.
Mr. Madden.
Christine, you stole my thunder. I was just going to mention one of those such events on Zoom that would be perfect for a cold, snowy Tuesday evening. The Delaware County Historical Society, they're presenting a conversation around the 1960s civil rights movement in Chester, PA, and specifically the protests held in 63 and 64 to end de facto school segregation. The event will host a panel of speakers providing both academic historical context and firsthand accounts of this tumultuous period. The conversation will address how the events in Chester City were significant in the national civil rights movement and how this history relates to movements around equality and inclusion today. It's going to be moderated by Stefan Roots, the director of the Chester Matters blog. And he will be joined by a panel of tremendous guest speakers that is actually still in formation, but it will include Twilla Simpkins, the founder and director of the Yes Center and a former educator and Chester resident, Dr. Jordan Smith, professor of history at Widener University, and Dr. Chris Meal, professor of university it's getting late, professor at the University of Buffalo, who's an urban sociologist and author of Race and the Politics of Deception. So for anyone interested, this is free, it's open to the public, and you can register online at padelcohistory.org, padelcohistory.org. The event will be, I probably should have said this, this coming Tuesday. at 6 p.m., Tuesday, February 23rd at 6 p.m. Make sure you register in advance at padelcohistory.org. That's all I got.
Is it virtual, Kevin? Or is it in person?
No, sorry. It's via Zoom. It's a Zoom event.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Madden. Dr. Taylor.
Yes, I have an additional Black History Month celebration announcement. So typically, council would host or participate in a variety of events to celebrate the achievements of African Americans and recognize the members of the community and organizations who work to educate, celebrate, and promote Black history and culture through education and the arts. Last year, I was honored to visit schools across the county to serve as a guest speaker, and also had a chance to visit dozens of libraries across the county to read to our youngest residents. COVID has changed the ways in which we interact with our residents, but thanks to technology, we're able to hold some of these events virtually. I had the honor of speaking to students at Upper Darby Middle School virtually last week, and this week and next week, our library services will hold 2 virtual Black History book readings. I invite students, parents, and teachers to join me on Friday, February 19th at 11 a.m. and on Tuesday, February 23rd at 7 p.m. for a virtual Black History Month reading. The readings will be hosted on the Delaware County Library System's website and Facebook page. A link to participate can be found on the county's website at www.delcopa.gov, and I hope you can join us.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. I too feel like I have said my piece on the vaccine at the beginning of the meeting, so I would just like to publicly and formally declare that I'm hungry and tired, and I will wish everybody a good night. And would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Be safe.
Good night.